Welcome everyone. My name is John. I'm the solution engineer over at Exelo. And today we'll be going through an overview and Q&A of the full PSA platform. For the front half of the hour, I'll go through a quick background of why Accelo exists, why we decided to build it. And then we'll spend 20 minutes going through the full customer journey from the moment you meet them in a sale or the time that you upload them to the system, all the way to the first invoice that you send off. And then we'll spend the last part of that going through the ongoing relationship side, the retainer ticket client portal. Then in the back half of the hour is all for you. Feel free to ask any questions that came up during the front half, or if you're setting up your trial and had a question about a very specific thing, feel free to drop that in as well. You'll see in the Zoom navigation a little Q&A button. If you want to click that, you'll be able to answer or ask your questions. I'll be able to answer them live. Now, some background of Accelo. This is Jeff. He's our CEO. But if we were to wind all the way back to 2001, he was just starting a new company called Internatrix. It was a digital agency, web design, IT consultant firm out of Australia. And he was the managing director. And what he did was he had invited 3 of his good colleagues from university to join him as well. Eamon, Glenn, and Chris. And while these were the 4 original people within this firm, they are also the 4 original people within Accelo. And I'll tell you shortly how that came to be. So all 4 of them sat around a little conference table. They were able to communicate with whiteboards and sticky notes and just bump a name in on the side and saying, hey, how's it going? How much time did you spend last week on this project? Or for Glenn, did any new people ask to build a website for, need a consulting project? But what happened was they started getting really good and they started bringing in more customers. And what happens when you bring in more customers for a professional service firm is you have to hire more people. And while it was really exciting that they were growing, what they're finding is it was becoming chaos. So a lot of the tools that they're using weren't supporting the processes. Information was getting siloed. They're finding their profit margin was dropping, even though they're bringing more and more revenue in. So while they're looking at the tools that were working really well for a smaller company, they were thinking, okay, well, we really like how user-friendly it is, but it's not helping us answer those questions like, did the customer get back to us? Or are we going to be profitable next month? What systems did answer those questions were enterprise systems, ERPs, PSAs, these big systems for big companies, and also with really big price tags. The last thing they didn't like as a small team who built web apps was that they weren't user-friendly. They knew that their team wasn't going to buy into them. Therefore, the data coming out of them wouldn't have been correct anyways in the first place. So they're looking at enterprise software, they're looking at these tools, and they're thinking, well, heck, we build applications. We know how to do this. We do this for a living for our clients. Let's build an in-house tool for ourselves. And while it wasn't called Accelo at that time, that's what Accelo came from. Their need to automate, to systemize, to have this transparency into their growing agency, while at the same time having a user-friendly tool that they knew that the team would adopt. Now, that was in 2005 that they started developing that in-house tool. It started becoming really popular. We started licensing it out to customers of ours. And in 2011, Jeff and the original other 3 who had joined him to start the professional service firm decided to sell the firm and go full-time into developing Accelo as a product. And in 2011, we decided to move to San Francisco, get funding, continue to grow the team, as well as the number of customers. So while we started mainly as a web design and development agency, we've moved since into other areas as well. A lot of digital marketing companies, IT consultants, as well as bookkeepers are starting to find a lot of value moving over to us. And if you don't see your face, well, I hope you don't see your face. If you don't see your company or the type of work that you do here, no worries. We've grown a lot in the past few years into really all ranges of professional services, architecture, PR, financial consulting, you name it. Now, that's a bit about how Accelo exists. Now, what about how does it work? When we were a growing team from the 4 to 5, what we found is we started losing a lot of insight into who our customers were. And at the core of what Exelo is it's a place to keep track of all of your client work across the entire customer journey so that everyone on your team and also on your client's team has full insight and transparency into really what's going on the day-to-day. So that would be everything from the beginning of a relationship to your first impression, all the way to keeping your client happy with your ongoing work. And our 4 products, if you were to look at our pricing page on the website or within your app, would be the CRM or sales opportunity section, the projects area, services, tickets or issues you may call them, as well as retainer work for your ongoing work. And all 4 of these combined to create what we call PSA or professional service automation. So what I want to do is jump in. I'll first create the first client in the system, and then we'll go through the entire customer journey on our call today before the Q&A. So there's a lot of bike companies outside of us in San Francisco, so I'll just create a bike company. So now this is a lead. Maybe I met Malin out in the ferry terminal or on the street, and he expressed interest in us building a website for him. And in our CRM, what you'll find on the left-hand side, and really any of the areas of work, is going to be information about my customer. Here you'll see the current status it's in. Since Malin asked for a quote, it's already in quote requested. After I send the quote, I can move it into quote sent. But some typical things in most CRMs. And then where we start to differ is the ability to integrate meetings and emails into the system. So again, we're client-centric, so any emails that your team's having with Malin or anyone else on his team, we can automatically pull those back into the system. So you don't have to remember to forward, CC, get things left in the dark, drop them into silos where no one else can see them. And hopefully that will help you with converting more sales. So now that I've sent that off, you'll see it in his inbox. If he responds to it, I would see it in my Gmail inbox. If I was using Office 365 or Outlook, I would see it in there as well. And then lastly, I can see it in here too. So if Malin responds, I would see it in line. Other things you can do is log calls or schedule meetings, other activities that would normally happen throughout the sales process. The first step in putting together your quote would be to add a plan. And if it's a bespoke piece of work, if it's just a one-off, I would create it like this. And this would be an example of a very simple piece of work with just 3 tasks. I would assign the design to David Designer. It's going to take him about half a week. I'm charging $100 an hour. Maybe the developer rate is higher. And 10 hours of testing. Now design normally takes me 1 business week, dev few, and then testing 3 days. And they aren't all going to happen at the same time. So I could manually drag and shift them. Or what I can do is have them dependent on each other. For example, the design needs to happen after the development needs to happen after the design. Test after the dev. If I wanted to get more detailed, for example, if I was testing specific things, or if I want to do front-end development and back-end development, I'll just insert below. And here's where I can put in more detail. Now this is me creating a high-level piece of information, and it's all on the fly. If I wanted to give my account management team some more structure in the projects, I could use a template. We just have 1 template in this system, but it would put in all this information like the structure, the hours, the rates, so I don't have to really think about it as I'm sending out new quotes. That tends to save a lot of time in building quotes, whereas this might be 30 minutes or an hour. If you're sending off 10 of them every week, that time really starts adding up. And then lastly, if we want to put together materials, maybe there's brochures that were involved in this. We can put that in as well, charging them $1, and I think my vendor is going to give me 50 cents per item. Now the next step after putting that together is putting more information around the quote, like an introduction, maybe past projects, the team. Normally the About Us page on your website tends to be a good thing to put in the introduction. And then terms and conditions, this could be payments, something along those lines. We can drop in those templates. And the last step is wrapping up in a really nice looking PDF quote. If your time and materials, I would keep this information. If we were on a fixed bid project, I would probably want to hide the rate in the hours. But let's keep it as time and materials. If Malin got back to me, sent me an email, give me a phone call, I'll be able to accept. Otherwise, if he was a current customer of ours, we could have him sign into the client portal and accept it on his own. And then the last step would be to convert this quote into a project. I'm choosing the automated example. This will show how we can build in a project progress and workflows into our system. The same goes for a sale. I just chose to do the default simpler version. So now what we've done is we've moved from the sales module into the projects module in our system. And if you take a look at this project plan, it's going to look really similar to the quote that we put together. All that effort and work that we put on that side has now translated down here. I'm going to start this project next week, and it's now updated all the timelines. So now that I've put together this project, I'm going to start doing work on the design front. We have $2,000 budget to work with. On the hour side, we have about 20 hours. So David Designer could come in here and he can start doing design work. He's going to start mocking up in Photoshop or Sketch or some application outside of what we're seeing here. So David likes to create this timer. And what this timer allows him to do is know that his time is being logged accurately and easily without having to come back in here at the end of the week. He also uses the mobile app for the timer too. So he'll let this run as he's going and designing and getting into the zone. And when he comes back, he can complete it and he can always override it. So let's say he stepped out for lunch for an hour and forgot to turn off the timer. He can always come back in here and say, I did 3 hours, not 4 hours. Now, since I, John Smith, and the project manager, I'm working with the team to make sure this gets delivered, I might come in here and create a note to David. And I just want to meet with him next week to look through these mockups now that he's logged time on it. And what you can see here on these internal collaboration notes is a timer for me, more of the management side, to automatically track all these little interactions of collaboration or client emails as well. And what we found is for the project managers, about 10 hours every single week was wrapped up in this little bits of communication, collaboration that wasn't previously being tracked. And companies like Big Blue Digital, a team of 15 people, was able to recoup about $40,000 every single month just in these small interactions. So maybe 10 minutes here and there is wrapped up in that. Now, as the team starts doing work on these different tasks and starts updating things like start and due dates, we really started to do it today. What the team will start seeing on the project plan is it automatically updating. So now when I'm sitting down with the owner going through this, I have a really good idea of how much of the budget we've already eaten into. David, the designer, has a really good idea of how many hours he has left to work with. And maybe only the owner is having also a great idea of what's our live profit margin based off of what we've done work on, as well as looking into the future, what we're expecting our profit margin to be based off of all the work that we need to do in the future. So instead of doing quarterly reviews, figuring out if you're profitable or not, and it being too late, what you can start doing is more proactively looking at these numbers and changing what you're doing now to influence the future so that you can be profitable, so that you can hit those profit margins that you're looking for. So that's some of the time locking and collaboration right on the task. If your team wants to go more the traditional method, we have a few different ways to log time. One would be through the task board, seeing the task that you need to do and logging time against it. Another would be the timesheet. So David might log in and see, oh great, I need to do design work here. And I was supposed to do about 8 hours of it today. And instead of coming into the end of the week with a blank timesheet and logging against it, based off of all those schedules that the project team has put together, it's going to automatically update his timesheet to log time so that it's easy and also accurate. The last part in the project flow would be to invoice, or maybe this is the first part in your project flow. And what we can do is we can build in workflows to the project to help you prompt and automate some of these processes. So for example, this is a internal alert to invoice. Or if your team is more involved in the invoicing process, maybe you just put invoicing into this workflow. So for example, we might want to do 50% upfront. It's taking my $9,000 budget, getting me 45. Or since I quoted for time and materials, maybe I'm doing time and materials for bi-weekly. And now I can see that showing up here. Now, the way that the invoicing sync works is we're integrating with Office 365, Xero, QuickBooks, online or desktop, as well as SASU. And these general ledger codes can automatically sync over. And what we're looking for is Mail-in and Embarcadero bikes, and we're then integrating into that account. And as an account team or as someone managing this project, I would be able to see if there's any more outstanding invoices. If these go on too long, maybe it's time to put a hold on the project until the customer pays, because we don't want to be doing too much work in the future that we're not going to get paid for now or really ever. So this is a good way to start integrating the getting paid for the work you love side. So that's everything from the beginning of relationship to the first impression. Now what I want to show is how we can start setting up ongoing work items as well as keeping your customers happy through tickets. So it's no longer a lead, it's now an active customer of ours. And here I would like to create a retainer. Now there's a few different ways that retainers work for our system. One might be something like a bi-weekly payroll. Another might be blog posts or SEO every month, or it's just a general support contract for the systems that I'm supporting, such as a website or servers. So in this example, let's do system support. Every single month, we're going to send an invoice off. We're going to charge $500 a month. We're going to give them 3 hours to work with, and we're going to schedule some services. This might be like bi-weekly payroll. We know that's going to take us an hour every month to do. This is going to automatically regenerate this task. And then for the other 2 hours, that might be just ad hoc work like requests or phone calls that come in. So one way to do work on this would be just like before, we open up that task. We either have conversations, log time against it, use the timer like David did when he's designing. Or here, bi-weekly payroll, I'm probably just logging into an accounting system and coming back in here and logging my 30 minutes. And I've completed that. For some of the ad hoc work that we didn't expect, what I first want to do is invite Malin to our customer portal and show you how you can start sending in requests. So I just sent him an email. He clicked on the email link, brings him to this page. And what Malin would be able to see are the quotes that we sent him. He would have been able to improve this quote since it already is converted. We're just able to see it here. Same with progress on projects, ability to send back and forth attachments, track. So now Malin has insight that on September 1st, we're probably going to finish this website for him. And then lastly, well, at least lastly for today of what I show, if there is a website bug that needs fixed. As a support request. Now, Malin could have also emailed support at group demo is the name of my company here, and that would come into the same support request that I'm about to show. So there's really two ways for a request to come in. So I can see that it needs to be fixed. John on the team sees it and says, sure, we'll get right back to you. This is like a team inbox. So that email came right back from me. So you don't have to lose a lot of that personal interaction that you have now on emails going back and forth, but now you're going to have the system on the back end to help you automate some of them. Ali takes all the bugs for the website. I noticed that this was a 516 error. So I'm going to start tracking these in tags to see the volume of 516 errors, just to see if it's not a system-wide problem. And I'm going to relate this back to the retainer, which means that all the work and the insight from this can trickle back. Also, all the time that I'm spending troubleshooting can fill up that time bucket that we're promising the customer to see if I'm over or under serving them on a given month. Here's an example of some automation we can build into the process, like notifying Malin that we're working on the ticket. This tends to help with insight into what's going on. So I sent him that original email, just giving him an update. I logged into his account and figured out that it was the CMS that we were using, the system, that was the problem. So I just want to quickly update him. And as I'm writing this email and communicating, I can automatically track this time, just like the project manager was able to track time on the project side. The support technician, the dev, whoever's working on this side can automatically track that. Let's say it was a 10-minute update email. So we're now waiting on the third party to get back to us. Whether it's WordPress or Contigo, Magento. And I'm going to have a call with their support tech over there. All right, so he said he'll get back in a day. It was a 30-minute call. I'm going to put this to tomorrow. If he doesn't get back to me, I can put some alerts in that if I'm waiting on a third party and it's past the due date, to automatically notify that third party, or just to notify me internally to make sure that we're delivering that really effective service. Some people use an acronym, SLA, or service level agreement. It essentially means, are we keeping our customer happy? Are we making the promises that we're delivering to them? And let's say they did get back to me tomorrow, everything looks good, and we've resolved the issue. Great. And here comes an automation again. I don't have to rewrite this email. It's automatically pulling in some of this information that I've already put in to more of the management side. And all I have to do is send this off or put in a little special touch. Instead of thanks, I like to say love and kisses. Now that I've logged a ticket and on the system support, I also did the payroll. What you'll be able to see on month over month is how much time the different items are spending. So for example, all those calls that I logged and the work that I was doing automatically came back here, as well as those recurring tasks that are happening every month. So now we have a way to track our ad hoc work as well as our predictable work and deliver on both of those really effectively. And as a team, track if we're being profitable, if our customer is being engaged, all the things that are really usually hard to track on the retainer on the ongoing work side, we can bring some management and structure into. So that's the process all the way from your first relationship to delivering really excellent ongoing work. Thanks for your time, everybody, and talk to you soon.